Oh, what's going on, guys? So, the worst thing could have happened in my webinar today, and that is no one showed up. We had, I think it was 8 signups, maybe 7 sign up in the end. And I knew going into this, at least 4 of those were busy today. So I'm not like really upset, but I don't like it when I like basically turning failures into successes. So this is, like I said, this was the one thing that I was really scared of, especially in the first webinar. So I've decided I'm just going to go through the slides anyway and see where this goes. I'm going to try and keep this under an hour, actually close to 45 minutes if possible. So let's jump straight into this and share the screen, guys. So how to network and negotiate like an undercover spy, gather intel during conversations so you can attract the right people, connect on an emotional level whilst discovering more win-win opportunities in our life and within our relationships, essentially. This is classified information. I've not at all gone over the top with the spy branding for this. So what are we going to go through today, guys? And I'm also going to pre-warn you, I'm not one of these people who likes to go by slides. There's going to probably be way too much text on these slides. I like to give these out in little PDF documents after my talks. When I do talks on live stage, they're just notes behind me, and I don't really need to follow these, but just so you're aware. So what are we going to go through today, guys? We're going to go through the emotional laws and rules when it comes to reading human behavior, what we're actually reading when it comes to reading other people's body language. We're then going to move on and seeing the whole picture and basically show you guys. We're essentially going to unlock the emotional radar with this. Move on to the next session. We actually go through the actual what we're seeing when we're reading body language. You'll learn later that there's 3 channels: visual, audio, content. We're going to do a deep dive lesson into the visual channel with heads, shoulders, hands, feet. After that, we're going to go and introduce you guys to the spy compass, introduce some mirrors for you, and we're going to quickly go through some baselining. Since no one's here today, I've kind of changed this up a little bit. But if you go back to the previous webinar we did some baselining, and the mirror and compass is really good for baselines. And then we're going to round up with my special offer for the new Sherlock Bond persuasive negotiation system today. So why is this webinar and talk so important to me? So as a performer, I eventually got into the mind reading realm of performing, mind reading being the key word. I do this little inverted comma thing because most of the mind reading I do when performing is bullshit. So I wanted to essentially get people to buy into these performances. So I wanted to study from who I considered were like the real deal when it came to reading human behavior. So I ended up meeting some behavior and personality profilers for training. So, and this all happened in 2014, 2015. I was getting tricked and manipulated within my first business by a villain, wasting my time, energy, money. This all happened at a bar. You can tell I'm still not over it even to this day. And essentially this led to me getting sick of seeing other people around me becoming successful in life whilst I was really struggling. That jealousy started happening. And essentially I wanted to learn to attract the right people into my business, friendship groups, inner circles, and make sure that I could defend myself against the wrong-uns that I like to call them if they show up. So to this day now, I'm now performing at weddings, private events, corporate events, and now I'm slowly starting to build a community of undercover ethical spies, if you will, where I'm teaching behavior profiling, body language reading, negotiation skills, persuasion tips, all these things that we can use within our relationships to discover more win-win opportunities and connections within our lives. So that's what this is all about, guys. So just some key points about my expertise. When I was getting rinsed during my business, my feelings were hurt. It was embarrassing. And I just, I want to help people get rid of, not have to go through the same bullshit I went through and not deal with these emotional scars, if you will. As I've said, jealousy of others' success. I got tired of seeing other people around me being super successful. And some of them were just below average, if I would have been quite honest with you. And I got sick of being overlooked by them. And the final thing, probably the most important thing, bottom line is I was attracting the wrong people into my life. I had to take responsibility for this, and this is what all this is training about, because taking responsibility for attracting these and learning our Dr. No manipulation blueprint and all this jazz that we teach in SBPN is massively important. So why is this so important now to learn how to connect with the right people? And it is very, very simple, guys. We are living in a time whereby we are more connected with people than we ever have been before. The pandemic did a lot of shitty things, we can all be honest. But one of the things that it did do that, you know, we're all seeing the benefits of now is it's connected us in more ways than we ever saw. Zoom's huge. You can, you know, jump on calls with people so quickly because of the internet nowadays. And it does change how we do business, which means there are even more opportunities available to us than ever before in history, which means we can literally connect with anyone. And the key thing is when you connect with people is how do you know the good people from the bad ones? How do you know the good opportunities from the bad ones? And 99% of the time, your decisions are going to be influenced by talking to someone who you trust. So it's super important to make sure that you trust the right people, guys. So by learning the key skills in your social interactions to get other people to open up and have all the information needed to decide whether you want to have a relationship with this person, you want to do business with this person, go on a date, whatever the conversation framework may be, seeing the signs early allows you to get ahead, think about the context, the situation, what you're reading, and then decide the best move of action to move the conversation forward, essentially building trust, or if you want to move away from that person, things of that nature. We go through all of this within the SBPN system, and we're going to be touching on some of the things today. So why on earth would you guys bother to learn to read and influence human behavior from a magician, mind reader, and a pickpocket? Well, as I said, previous experience, I've been rinsed in my business life. I've also, in my personal life, I've got lots of crazy people around me. And I thought that a lot of these people had my back, and it just turns out they just stab you in the back the moment they get a chance. So I've spent a lot of time, money, energy, researching, watching videos on training from leading experts in high-risk negotiation, behavior profiling, analysis world. And I took their skills into a very safe environment of private events, weddings, pretending I was being a mind reader, practicing these techniques. And that's where I got my practicing for actually learning this stuff. So learned from the high risk world, took all of their techniques and pissed around at weddings essentially. And that was the main reason, that was the initial reason why I took this training, was I wanted to make what I was doing as a mind reader looks like the real deal. Now, as I took this training, my mindset slowly shifted and I started seeing positive outcomes with my sales, networking, personal relationships. And this stuff is so much cooler than just, you know, pretending to be a mind reader. You get to really connect with people on a deep level. Super cool stuff. So I've taken some lessons and learned, it's just, like I said, I've practiced all this stuff in the low risk environment. Some of my mentors have been like ex-FBI, ex-CIA, ex-police, army interrogators. And within my performances at the earliest, I get called some very interesting names. I get called wizard, witch, clairvoyant, undercover spy is one that I like. People call me psychic, devil's advocate, hypnotist, cold reader, mind controller. And this honestly is just a short list of what people believe I can do. And if you see some of the things that I do in my, particularly in the mind reading realm of what I do, it's just ridiculous. And this all happens because of persuasion, influence. A lot of the mind reading stuff I'm doing is just linguistics, if I'm completely honest with you guys. So I'm now essentially sharing the secrets, becoming a master of persuasion, negotiation, how to read and connect with people's human behavior, to build trust, connect with the right people, and find more opportunities within your business and personal relationships. That's what we're all about with today's webinar. So as I said, we're going to be going through the emotional laws and rules of behavior today. Quickly check out the SBPN system, the emotional radar, unlocking the whole picture, seeing the visual channel, close up with some mirrors and introduce you to the spy compass. And then we're going to introduce you guys to something very special that I'm excited about today. So just to let you guys know, the framework for the Sherlock Bond persuasive negotiation system is broken up into 9 modules. We've finished the first 6 completely, the training and all that, on the online school at sherlockbond.com. The other 3 we're currently working on just to really make the course as tidy as possible. So today we were going through things of unlocking the emotional radar in the second module, ice-breaking mentality, and then we're going to be going into the ethical interrogation and interviewing. We're jumping around a little bit with this, guys. So first we're going to go to emotional laws and rules. What are we actually reading when it comes to reading body language? And I actually prefer to call this emotional behavior. So why is this so important? Now, a lot of you are not going to like this when I say this, but some of you think that we are logical creatures. As human beings, this is not the case. We are emotional creatures by nature and not logical. And there's so many people out there who are presenting their arguments in conversations in such a logical way, and they're wondering why they're not connecting. It's because you're not hitting those emotional points within conversation, guys. So many people focus on their key point in their conversations, interactions, engagements, logically missing opportunities to connect with the person on an emotional level, sometimes causing confusion, even unnecessary confrontation. Now, being able to read emotional behavior essentially allows you to do something really cool, puts the trust building game on steroids. It allows you to see, hear, and most importantly, understand these signs, which we call areas of sensitivity. And all these areas of sensitivity are just when we hold an emotion to a topic, person, a place. Could be positive, could be negative. But when we can spot these, we make sure we see, hear, understand them. Two things are happening. You're going to learn lots of information about that person, and you're also going to really build trust with the person. So you'll see more opportunities happen in conversation. Does that make sense, guys? And finally, mastering the skill later helps us massively, puts yourself in a position of influence, persuasion, negotiation frameworks by planning the next step with the spicy questions to elicit more information to help empower the person and to move forward on in their life, however you can, to help empower that person. That's what this is all about today. So what do most people do wrong when learning to read or profile emotional behavior? Well, the first thing is there's a lot of bullshit online, guys, especially from so-called body language experts and experts in influence. You know, crossing your arms means you're guarded and all this jazz. If you don't take it into the context, you might be outside and it's cold. They might be just trying to keep themselves warm. And when we're completely unaware of other people's areas of sensitivity, sometimes we can end up hitting these in conversation and, you know, cause confusion, conflict, and worst case scenario, unnecessary confrontation. And often it will hurt the other person's emotions and it just hinders building trust going forward. So when you start and anyone mentions the word body language or personality and behavior profile, and this is one of the things that I always get people do wrong all the time, is like you start studying all the tells or gestures, the single shoulder, the smiles and the eyebrow, and you start pointing these out, and it's like, that's not the way to go forward. It's not why people learn to read body language, guys. Okay, so what do we actually need to do when it comes to reading body language? Well, the first thing I'm going to teach you is a simple mindset shift, and that is, I need you guys to stop focusing on being coming across interesting to people and spend more time and energy being interested, learning about others. I'll say it again, you want to stop focusing on being an interesting person and focus more of your time and energy being interested in people. Okay, when you combine that mindset shift with these laws, you're going to see some awesome stuff. So you got to learn to walk before we can run with this, guys. So before we start teaching you any body language reading or anything like that, there's some simple laws that we've got to abide by when it comes to reading body language. So this is when it comes to human behavior. So law number one, everyone is suffering and insecure. Every single human being on planet Earth is suffering and insecure. It doesn't matter who you're talking to. Law number two, every adult is a product of childhood suffering and reward. And this goes up to the age of 14. So from the age of 0 to 14, every adult, that's like your childhood human being, 14 upwards, we are a product of childhood reward and suffering. Law number three, everyone wears a mask. I wear a mask, you guys wear a mask. Whenever we converse in society, we all wear a mask. And then law number 4 is everyone pretends that they don't wear a mask. So the idea of this is, I'm being very open about this, but usually in social setting, we all pretend that we don't wear a mask. This is why we hide all of our suffering and insecurities. We don't just go about telling this to everyone, usually at least. And I'm going to give you a 5th law. This is a bonus one. This is something that we go through in another module, but every human being is a drug addict. Every human being is a drug addict. We are addicted to neuropeptides. And this all ties into the social human needs that I teach in the SBPN system, but we're not going to be touching too much about that today. So they're the 5 main laws when it comes to reading human behavior, particularly emotional behavior. So when it comes to actually like reading body language, this is where the fun stuff comes in now, guys. When we communicate with people, we communicate in 2 languages when we communicate. We've got the logical language, which is the words that I'm saying right now. And then we've got our emotional language. And our emotional language essentially this is what you guys would consider the body language reading side of things. Our emotional language leaks across 3 different channels. So the first channel is the visual channel, which is what we're going to be talking about in the next module today. This includes all the things that you can see, the shoulder shrugs, my hand gestures, my eyes, eyebrows, head tilts, all this stuff that you can see. This is what we would call the visual channel. Second channel is what we call the audio channel. The audio channel is really simple. It's just anything that you can hear. It's not the words that are being said. If you're into music in any way, shape, or form, this is a really easy channel to read. Really helpful to read as well, because it helps with sales phone calls. You don't need to, if something like this was to happen with me right now, and you can't see my video, you'd still be able to read my emotional behavior because you can still listen to rhythm, speed, volume, pitch. And then the final channel that your emotional behavior leaks across is what we call the content channel. And this is just essentially analyzing words, sentence structures within our interactions. Really useful channel because it means you can start reading emotional behavior in text format. So text messages, emails, Facebook Messenger, all of that jazz. So now we can start learning to read emotional behavior, understanding that our emotional behavior leaks across 3 different channels. Essentially means when it comes to teach people this, usually what happens is naturally one of these channels we read really well. So in my case, when I started this, my natural strongest reading channel was my audio channel. I was really good at reading emotional behavior without seeing people. My weakest channel at the time was the content channel. So written communication, analyzing words, that was my weakest channel. So the way we put this on steroids is we just hammer our weakest channel. And now my weakest channel, the content channel, I'm better at doing than the visual channel, but it's so close to my natural strongest channel. I don't need to do too much work now. So it's reading people becomes really natural to me. And being aware of these 3 channels, it means you can choose when it's appropriate, which channel to read the most. If you're on a sales call and you can't see the person, which channels are the most useful, the least useful to use? It's going to be the visual one, right? So just being aware of this allows you to really start connecting with people on an emotional level. And as I said, we're going to be going through the visual channel today. So, but before we go through the visual channel, when it comes to reading any body language, there's another list of rules when it comes to reading this. And we're going to go through these today. So these are 5 things we need to keep in mind when we're reading other people's body language. So the first thing is we've got to take into account context and situation. You know, the context and situation of where I'm doing this webinar right now. I'm doing this in my home office. I'm in an attic room. The room's very small, weird space. You know, it's quite warm in here because the light comes in. So we've got to take into context and situation. If I start doing this right now, it might be a sign of deception, as you'll find out later, but it also might be, I might just be wiping the sweat off my forehead. You know what I mean? Second thing we've got to take into account is clusters. We don't ever look for single gestures when it comes to reading body language. We look for a cluster of things to happen. If you see this single-sided shoulder shrug, what's happening with the RSVP of my voice? Is there anything that's happening with the adjectives of the words, or am I dropping the pronouns at the same time? These are all things that we can take into account and consider clusters when reading emotional behavior. Third thing that we've got to take into account is culture. Going to different cultures, there are going to be different gestures that are accepted and sometimes considered offensive. Anyone who travels lots about this, you'll understand there's like certain countries, and Japan's a big one. That like, this one reason why I'm a little bit worried about going to Japan, because I don't understand their what's the correct behavior when it comes to eating and meeting people, things of that nature. I'd have to do some research and learn about this if I was to go there. Fourth thing is age. Fun little facts about particularly our body language and visual channel. All of our gestures are basically learned from a kid. If a kid hears music that they don't like, covers their ears, our body language just gets a little bit more sophisticated as we grow up. So really easy is like when you see like kids do things like this, normally you see adults do just slightly more sophisticated gestures. And then the fifth law, most important one, is congruence. Congruence is simply are the gestures matching up with what's being said? Like, is there a clash between the emotional and the logical language? And you'll see this all the time when, particularly when we go through baselining, when you see positive and negative body language at the start of conversations, all we're looking for is congruence, where there's a clash in the emotional language and what's being said. And just some examples, case studies, some students who used it for. This is Chris. Chris came with us, he came to our first webinar. He's done a few one-to-one sessions with me. We really focused on his tonality of his voice. So we didn't do too much of this, but he's also learning how to become a mind reader in terms of a performer. And he's essentially, again, using these exact skills to practice his cold reading, to detect areas of sensitivity, which is super important when it comes to cold reading and performance, because there's some things you don't want to be talking about. As a performer, you want to make all of your readings quite happy and positive. You don't want to be talking about things if someone's worried about not being able to pay their bills or things of that nature, right? So this is one of the cool things. When you can spot areas of sensitivity, you can learn to deal with them or steer the conversation in a different direction to keep building trust. So really quick exercise before we go through the next bit of content is, I'm going to teach you guys really quickly how to slow down your internal clock. So that way, when it comes to reading emotional behavior, you're just going to be able to pick up on more things, essentially. It's really easy to do. Quick story I'm going to tell you is about, if any of you heard this game called Yellow Car No Return. So normally this would be a game that would happen when you're on a school bus. You'd be looking out the window, someone would punch your arm and scream, "Yellow car, no return." And you suddenly be looking for yellow cars so you can return the gesture, and 5 minutes later every small human is playing this stupid game on the bus. There's a reason why this happens. Is essentially you're telling your subconscious what to look out for, yellow car, and then you end up getting hit, so you get punched, and that's basically resetting our limbic system with pain. And essentially it turns your brain into like a little radar looking for these yellow cars, which is why all the kids start punching each other. It happened with my mum actually as well. She was going to buy a new Land Rover. She did all the research for this, and when she was on the phone to me, she was always seeing this Land Rover whenever she was driving. It was, again, and it's because you're essentially resetting your reticulating activating system, which is a little bunch of nerves at the bottom of your brain, and telling it what to look out for. So what we do, how we basically utilize this when it comes to reading human behavior, guys, is what I will do is if I was going to have a call with someone, I'm going to listen out for rhythm, speed, volume, pitch of the voice. Screw it, I might listen out dropping of pronouns as well. I would then bite my tongue, just so I feel that pain. I don't want it to bleed or anything like that. And then I would play a slow song inside my head. The song that I like is the Harry Potter theme tune. Do, 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 do. Play that in my head for 15 seconds, and then we go into the conversation. And suddenly all we've done there is my brain is listening out for all the little details of the rhythm, speed, volume, pitch of their voice, dropping of the pronouns. So it just makes it a little bit easier to see in conversation. And you could do this with any gesture, by the way. You could do this with some of the gestures that we'll be going through in the visual reading later on. So what happened to me when it started coming to connect with people on an emotional level, my mind reading got better. I had better relationships with my family, my friends. I was making more sales. I was charging more money for the gigs that I was getting booked for. Just building trust in relationships. There are so many win-wins involved, guys. Like, it really did change my life in such a different way. As I said, I was able to approach anyone, start up conversations with people. When I was out performing busking now, just because I was using some of these techniques, I went from pissing people off when I was approaching them to people begging me to stay for one more trick and can essentially book me for weddings and events as well, which essentially led to me filling up my sales pipeline in my entertainment business, meeting new friends. And I was just having a blast in life, making new connections, really. Started negotiating higher fees, more sales. I was more calm, relaxed on calls because I was emotionally connecting with people. And as I said, I was just making more connections with the right people. And I was getting books for all kinds of things, keynote talks, my social media content was better. Dating life was a lot better. There's so many benefits to learning how to read the emotional channel, guys. I can't really say much more. So, second segment, I'm going to very quickly go through this. This is me introducing the Sherlock Bond system to the world properly this time. I'm just going to essentially show you the plan for this. Yeah, so we're going to quickly go through the emotional radars, since this is what we're focusing on today. When this is locked, when we don't do this, we go into conversations unaware of our own emotional language, unaware of other people, how other people are feeling, and again, cause confusion, conflicts, and it's just, we want to avoid this, right? We also, a lot of people go into conversations and interactions guessing or assuming other people's feelings. When we unlock the emotional radar, guys, you can start designing questions where you can actually test these assumptions to make sure that you're right or wrong, rather than just assuming someone feels a certain way. And then frustration and confusion in conversation, this is what we ultimately end up with when this is locked. We want to avoid that as much as possible. So when we unlock the emotional radar, we can start seeing people's areas of sensitivity in conversation, allows us to build trust with them. We can see, hear, understand these areas of sensitivity, which essentially allows you to connect with people on a much deeper level, allowing you to make the decision whether you actually want to work with the person, take the girl out on a date or a guy out on the date, allow someone into your community. There's so much more cool stuff you can do with this, guys. And this is just a small piece of the puzzle for the Sherlock Bond persuasive negotiation system, by the way. There's lots of cool stuff in there. So who's the Sherlock? Like, if you're, you know, these are kind of the important things that we help you with in the SBPN system. If you're struggling with rejection, or you're lacking confidence, you've got broken connections within your relationships that you want help with, work with, these are the kind of problems that we help people out with. And what happens if you keep doing the same thing, if you're struggling reading people's emotional behavior, guys? I'll tell you real quick, you're gonna end up wasting your time and resources. Like I said, when I was getting rinsed, I lost so many opportunities. It was ridiculous. And the worst thing is, you're not presenting the best version of yourself. That's the thing that probably hurts most people, is you are cheating people of meeting the best version of yourself, just because there's that misunderstanding of not being able to connect with people on an emotional level. And honestly, guys, this stuff is really easy. So let me just like how it could be. Just imagine if you had the 3 superpowers for a moment. If you could read people like Sherlock Holmes, but you had the social skills of James Bond. So unlike Sherlock, you can read people's emotional language, and you knew exactly how someone feels about a topic, a situation, a person, or even themselves. And you had the ability to create the illusion of control and influence another person just with the power of your voice, allowing you to plan conversations ahead of time. Do you think you would be able to connect with the right people, stay away from the villains, and discover more win-win opportunities within your business and personal life? Be honest with yourself. Would it be a ridiculous idea for me to show you how this is all possible? And we're going to be going through some of this in the webinar very shortly. But this is like why we teach this in the Sherlock Bond persuasive negotiation system. If you said no to this question and you're sat there thinking, okay, Magic Man might be on something here. Now, let me ask you, like, would it be worth having a chat with us or find out to work together if you want to unlock just the emotional radar? And that's just the second module. There's so much more cool stuff we go through in the interviewing, interrogation stuff, the negotiation authority, you know, composure in conversations, building detailed profiles, all this stuff we go through in SBPN. So who is this offer for? Someone who wants to make more genuine connections. You want to stay away from narcissists, psychopaths, what I call the villains, and you just want to become an undercover boss spy and essentially just, you know, go into different conversation frameworks with a little bit more confidence and get more information in an ethical way. This is definitely something that you guys are going to be interested in. Who's it not for? People looking for quick wins. It's not going to be for you guys. Don't bother. Anyone who's going to be manipulating people with bad intentions, I will spot you. I will expose you. And there are actually things within my agreements to say, if I find this out about you, I can just cut you off the courses. I'm very serious about this. I understand these techniques in the wrong hands are very dangerous. And if there's any of you looking for an impossible dream, like a lie detector or a dream sales script that doesn't actually exist, don't waste your money. This isn't the thing for you. I promise you. There's other things out there that might be able to help you, but this is completely different. So what are the benefits of becoming an undercover ethical spy, guys? So you can build trust quickly with others. You're building communities with ethical spies and negotiators. You're going to be making more connections. You're actually going to learn more about yourself and other people, which is one of the coolest things about the system. It's a super fun way of interacting with people, all the stuff that we teach on this, and you're going to be able to help other people move forward and solve their problems. So how do I work with people to help with this? Essentially, I've got an online academy. There's 6 modules on there at the minute. We're working up to building to 9. So you can learn all this stuff on your own time. Easy login. There's an app on your phone, video lessons. There's a few audio lessons on there. We also do regular 60 to 90-minute sessions with student spies. We can go through any of the techniques you'd like to go through if you want to talk more about the mirrors, or you want to do more personality profiling, or the spy compass, whatever you'd like to work on. We can do that weekly. We also hold a monthly 1 to 2 hour group Zoom session. And again, this just gives you guys an opportunity to baseline some fellow spies, learn some of the techniques, ask questions how other people are using these ideas in their own conversation frameworks. And then anyone who jumps on it, any of the offers, they get a copy of my book, Real Life Stories of Narcissists, Psychopaths, Gadgets to Defeat the Villains. And I also have the scan decoding cards that come with a spy ID card coming out soon. Anyone who jumps on the top package, they'll be getting a free set of these as well. So there's going to be 2 offers. I'm just sharing with you guys the plan for 2023. This is a new system. If you stay on today, there's going to be something quite saucy at the end. So don't read too much about these prices. I know these are ridiculous at the minute, but this is what I want to be charging for this in 2023. And I'm looking for feedback. If you think I'm being ridiculous, let me know, because I'm going to be adjusting these, okay? So we have what I like to call the SBPN baby spy system. So essentially what you're going to get access to, you're going to get access to SBPN system modules 1 to 3, lifetime access. We're going to be doing monthly 60 to 90-minute group sessions with myself and other students on Zoom. We're also going to be holding our coaching session with myself one-to-one over 3 months, and you also get a copy of the book. The Big Boss Spy system is you get access to the entire Sherlock Bond system that's available at the minute, so modules 1 to 6. We're also working on 7, 8, 9 at the minute. They're going to be working, you'll actually be helping us build that together. Again, we're going to be doing the monthly 60 to 90-minute group sessions. And then we're also going to be getting our coaching one-to-one with myself. Get a copy of the book. We're also going to be throwing in a packet of the SBPN spy personality decoding cards. Super excited about these. You're going to love these, I promise you. And then finally, you get a ticket to the Sherlock Bond Networking Spy Assault course, which is going to be happening in Sheffield. Date to be confirmed. I'm super excited about this. I'm not sharing too much about that today. So if you are interested in this, the links for these, they'll be available on here, magicspeaker.gurucan.com/SBPN. If you do stick around for the training for this video, guys, at the end, there's going to be a special offer for you. Just some case studies of how this helped people. This is Chris, who's a fellow hypnotist. Like, just by changing his tonality of the voice and learning about these scan decoding language was massively helpful for him. Another person who jumps onto this was Chris Wood. just showing how to make yourself unforgettable when we met a while ago before the pandemic in the forum. And this is from Graham, Graham Lambert. Met Graham on Clubhouse during the pandemic. And this is just from one of our conversations. He reckons that I'm an actual undercover spy, which I thought was a hilarious message. But we'd been talking about this for about 3 hours one evening. And this was just some of the feedback he gave to me from this system. So we promise you'll be making the right connections and you'll become a master of social engineering and negotiation by the end of the spy training if you do decide to jump on with us. Like I said, here it is, guys. Go check out magicspeaker.gurukan.com/SBPN. Normally, if there was real humans here right now, I'd be doing a quick Q&A, so we're going to go straight into the third part, visual reading, unlocking a whole new way of seeing people, misconceptions from so-called online and social media body language experts, and share the real secrets to visual profiling. So why is this so important? I see lots of people who claim to be body language experts and they just spew complete BS to you guys, just stuff that is not helpful at all. But more importantly than that, there are so many opportunities to read people's visual body language, especially since like videos and pictures are huge on social media these days. There are so many opportunities to read other people's body language. So taking note of the early signs allows you to see people's areas of sensitivity, remember, and it allows you to be empathetic towards these by seeing, hearing, understanding them, and it just puts the trust building game on steroids. And you'll learn a lot about yourself and the other person. This is super powerful stuff, guys. And yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun, I promise you. Remember, this is all about serving the other person you're speaking with and empowerment, if it's appropriate. Remember, you need to make sure you've got permission to actually empower the person. Otherwise, you might be coming across as a little bit pushy. So what are most people doing wrong when it comes to reading visual channel? Most of you are trying to read too much at once, I'll be honest with you. There's a lot of people with lots of information on cues out there and it just gets confusing. Just 2 or 3 of these is enough. Just becoming really good at spotting 2 or 3 of these gives you an edge in conversation, okay? Another thing, don't go around pointing out other people's gestures. It's not appropriate. You know, the moment you start learning this stuff, oh yeah, I start seeing this everywhere. No, don't point it out in conversation, guys. It's a really good way of pissing people off. And finally, a lot of people miss the point of why they learn this stuff in the first place, and that is you're supposed to be focusing on connecting with people. Most people focus so much on spotting these tells and miss out on the opportunities to connect with other people. It's all about connecting, guys. So how do we read people in the real world? Remember, context, clusters, congruence, age, and culture. Keep those in mind, guys. Got the spy mentality now. Stop focusing on being an interesting person and put more time and energy in being interested in other people. We're now going to jump into the visual reading. We're going to keep this super easy with head, shoulders, hands, feet, because we can really get too much into this, guys. We're going to keep this short and sweet. And once we do this, we give the person our full attention. We're going to listen to them and be empathetic as we spot these. And you can also do the slowing down your internal clock as well. I'm going to listen out for head, shoulders, hands, feet, bite the tongue, slow song in your head, okay? So quick lesson on heads, face, hands, shoulders, feet, guys. I'm going to keep this super quick. This comes straight. So first we're going to look at is, you know, visual reading. We're going to go through all of my personal favorite gestures real quick, because I don't want to make this go through it. So the first thing I like to look out for is head positioning. How we display or pose our head shows whether we're completely aggressive, bored, interested, flirtatious, distracted. All of these things that our emotions do, you can see the head gestures there will change a little bit. So head nods for positive feelings, the speed of the head nod, you know, if it's a slow one, it's usually patience of the listener. If it's faster, less patience and they want the conversation to finish. Slow nods, you know, patience, and they're actually interested in what the speaker's saying. You'll see this all the time. You go to keynote talks, guys, and when you see people listening, you'll be like, you see the slow bobbleheads. And then when you get to the end of the talk, or you get a bad speaker towards the end, you'll see the fast bobbleheads. It's a really interesting thing to see. So the level of the head, neutral. This is the position takes when the attitude is neutral towards you. Hands to gestures can sometimes be used in combinations, or hand to face gestures, I should say. Head up, superiority, fearlessness or arrogance, literally looking down their nose at you. And then that was head up. And then head down is usually a negative one, especially if it's met with the eyebrows going down, negative judgment or an aggressive attitude. And my favorite ones to look out for, and this is where I like to get people to do, is what we call head tilt. So they're exposing this part of the neck here. It's a submissive gesture, exposing the throat, the vulnerable parts. And it just makes the person look smaller and less threatening. It's a really good way to collapse when it comes to composure, guys. The origin comes from baby resting its head on mummy and daddy's shoulder or chest, showing non-threatening behavior. Understood most cultures in hugs. Fun little fact for you guys. And then the final one is going to be doing the head shrug, or what I like to call turtlenecking. And this is usually an indication of stress or embarrassment. You'll see people raise their shoulders, pull their head down. Sometimes they'll literally pull their head down with their hands. And this is something that you want to avoid when you're conversing with other people, because you want to portray confidence, right? This is the exact opposite of portraying confidence, okay? So hand to face gestures. When we see, speak and hear untruths, we often use hand to face gestures to hide these. So just to quickly go through these: the mouth guard, when the mouth covers, when the hand covers the mouth in some way, it usually something to do to suppress deceitful words. Nose touching, this is more sophisticated and disguised gesture of the mouth guard. Itchy noses are to be rubbed, not scratched. If you ever see anyone do like this scratchiness here, if I ever get an itchy nose, I always rub. No one scratches. So that's something to keep in mind when they're scratching. That's usually means something different. Eye rubbing, this is the brain to attempt blocking out deceit, doubt or lie that it sees, to avoid having to look at or envision something that they may not like. Remember the context. It's different if they have hay fever, for example. I have hay fever, so if you see me rubbing my eyes in the summer, could mean something else, again, because I have hay fever, itchy eyes, right? Ear touching, this is an attempt to block out the words by putting the hands around or over the ear. Again, kids will often do this, adults, it's more sophisticated, right? And look out for scratch, as with the nose. If you've got an itchy ear, usually you just rub it. You don't scratch your ear. You know, the only time you usually scratch is the forehead. I'm completely honest with you, maybe under the chin. So the neck rub and scratch, most neck scratches will happen with the index finger around 5 times between the ear and neck. This is a fun one to look out for. This could indicate stress, anxiety, excitement. It all depends on the baseline, context, the clusters and all that jazz, guys. Collar pull, research shows telling a lie causes like a little tingling sensation on the tissues of the face and neck, and sometimes can be seen with sweat or heard with a cough. So that's a really good one to listen out for deceit, guys. It's one that I definitely listen out for deceit, or spotting areas of sensitivity, I should say. Head rubbing or slapping, this is an exaggerated version of the collar pull and what I like to call the pain in the neck gesture. When done without eye contact is a good indication of lying. So if someone does this and, you know, literally rubs their neck or slaps themselves and don't make eye contact, often this is lying, just from my personal experience. Often negative people do this, which is why we avoid doing this. It's not a positive gesture. If you're someone who does this a lot, guys, stop it, is what we're saying. Fingers to mouth and nail biting. This usually happens when the person is under pressure. This is different to the hand and mouth, as the fingers to mouth is a signal of inner need of reassurance linked to nervousness and fear. If you imagine when we were a kid, you had a dummy. This is like the grown-ups version of a dummy right here. Hand gestures are key to openness and honesty. Really fun one. So there's basically 3 main palm gestures. You've got the palm down gesture. This is the palm down gesture, sorry. This usually signals authority. We've then got the palm up gesture. This is submissiveness or non-threatening, very much like a beggar. And then you've got finger pointing, which is very aggressive. I teach people to stop doing this immediately. If you could point at something, do it with an open hand if you can. Okay. Rubbing the hands. This is a way people communicate non-verbal. It's basically positive expectation. However, remember to take in the consideration of the speed. If I start talking to you like this would normally indicate craftiness or deviantness. How if I do this, usually indicates I'm excited about the webinar, right? Basic gestures to look out for. Clenched fists. These are usually a sign for frustration, holding back a negative attitude. I've got a bit of an anger issue, guys, so sometimes you'll see me clench my hands. Sometimes it's a single-handed clench in the pockets, and it's just hands are held, and the strength of a person's mood seems to show correlation. The higher the hands are, it's usually an indication of more stress, and the tighter they are, more stress. Told you guys, really simple when you guys think about this. So steepling, this is a gesture to usually indicate confidence. The higher this goes up, more confident you are, low you are. And usually when people do this, it means they're listening intently. I like to tell people to be wary of this gesture because this isn't a natural behavior. This is a learned behavior. And some people don't like it, that no one does this naturally. This is learned either for confidence or you know, influence or persuasion, negotiation. This is a learned behavior, guys. So just be wary. Not everyone likes this because some people see it as manipulative. So folded arms and barriers. One of my folded ones. This happens when people are nervous, negative, defensive attitude towards someone. And this is done at an early age as a way of protecting ourselves, as an attempt to block out any impeding or undesirable circumstances. However, remember, we've got to take into account the context of the gestures, the clusters, all that jazz. Again, we don't just look at a single gesture. So different ways of folding arms. We've got reinforced arm cross. This happens when we see clenched fists, often indicates the person becomes super defensive or hostile, right? We've then got the partial arm cross. I'm going to rotate this down so you can see this a little bit. We've then got the partial arm cross. This gesture here is what you'll see when someone is nervous or fearful. It allows a person to relive the emotion of being like held by your parents, okay? And then we've got the disguised arm cross. This is a highly sophisticated way or gesture used by people who continually expose to others, showing they may be nervous or unsure of themselves. This is where one arm will form a barrier and often be seen with props like pens, wine glasses, playing cards. See how I use this. So moving on to shoulders, this is my favorite, hands down my favorite visual gesture to look out for. This single-sided shoulder shrug. You'll see this everywhere now that I've pointed this out to you guys. It's often linked to lacking in commitment or not being sure of something. Okay. And finally, looking at people's feet when we're interacting with others, particularly at networking meetings. The direction of people's feet usually shows where interest is. And the thing that I like to look out for is what I like to call tippy-tappy feet. When you start seeing people dance around or moving their feet away from who they're talking to, that usually is an indicator the person's looking for an out of the conversation. They want to move on. So little things like this you can look out for when you're out and about, guys, and find when it's appropriate to enter a group or a conversation. We're almost at the end of the visual channel, guys. So we're going to quickly look at people's eyes. I don't look at eyes too much because they can be quite hard to look at, but constricting and dilating pupils when they get bigger, it just usually means the person likes you. And then contracted pupils are when they dislike you. So you've got beady eyes for constriction. Most people already know this. Darting eyes is another good one to look out for. Blink rate, so how often I blink, if that suddenly was to go up. Area sensitivity for you there. And you can also look at shutter speed of how quick the eyelids close and shut as well. So these are all things that we can look out for when reading emotional behavior, just as a heads up. And then we're going to do a real quickie on micro expressions. I don't like to touch on these too much because in real world application, they're very difficult to spot. The two that I like to look out for are disgust, which on my screen will be, and then we've got contempt. Okay. And they're the two micro expressions I look out for, guys. I'm not going to go too much into those. And then finally, just reading people's lips. Keep an eye out for chewing lips or anything, as this is a good indicator of anxiousness. Lip compression is a good one to look out for as well when people, this is literally someone forcing themselves to hold back from what they want to say. Really good thing to look out for. So again, how does this work? Like sales, networking, I've given you lots of examples of how I've used this in sales and networking, how to enter and exit conversations, despite, you know, not even talking to anyone before going into the conversation. You can just look at their body language and see, are they open to a conversation or are they engaged with another person at that time? In performances, I quickly became a master at baselining people's body language at wedding fairs, events, networking meetings. Even during my performances, I was doing cold readings. I would do a baseline beforehand and then do the cold reading, which would allow me to connect with people emotionally. And a lot of this was visual at the time because it was what I was practicing. So normally, if people here, we'd rewatch the baseline exercise from the first webinar. We're not going to do that today, just because, again, I want to keep this short and sweet. But how did learning visual interaction? So essentially, when I came to learning the visual channel, I started really understanding the power of mirrors. I started mirroring people's visual body language, especially for pickpocketing. Which you can utilize in all of your conversations. The mirroring aspects of things, not the pickpocket, might be weird, right? But mirrors can be used in all conversation frameworks. I later discovered the scan. Well, I created something called the Scan Hughes compass. Full credit goes to Chase Hughes from his books, the 6-Minute X-Ray. I started to utilize that with this from all the training I'd use. I added the personality profile and stuff in the corner as well. And the behavior, it allowed me to play and connect with people in different ways I wouldn't have expected. Whereas before, I just thought I'd be able to see these cues, instantly read people, which isn't the case. It's all about seeing those areas of sensitivity, being genuinely interested in the person. And usually what happens is, as you're helping that other person, they reciprocate that and often help you in ways that you never thought would happen. It's quite mind-blowing when you think about it. So again, if there was humans here, I'd be asking Q&As right now for this section. We're going to jump straight into the next one, which is building a reliable body language baseline, having a look at mirrors to connect with the right people, and we're going to quickly introduce the Scan Hughes compass to you guys. So why is this so important? Should be obvious by now that body language differs from person to person, and baselining allows us to get an accurate read when detecting emotional behavior and areas of sensitivity. Introducing mirrors is effective in conversation as it allows us to learn more about the other person we're speaking with without asking a single question. It's great stuff just by mirroring other people's language and gestures. You know, it kind of just gives them a little nudge to keep sharing more information. And we become curious about other people's interests by doing this. Mirroring also removes the risk of asking the wrong question, which is something that we touch on later in the SBPN system, which can cause confusion, irritation, even conflicts within our interactions. So what are most people doing wrong in their interrogations? So when baselining, some people focus on the next clever thing to say in the interaction, which doesn't do anyone any good. With mirrors, some people read up about these and just start repeating back words exactly the way the other person said them. This is not a mirror. This is just repeating shit back to them, and it's just going to piss them off. We're going to really understand what mirrors are today. And when you start seeing positive and negative gestures and spotting areas of sensitivity, you don't know how to note these down, let alone how to deal with them. So these are some of the things people are doing wrong when it comes to interrogating people. So what are the things that we can actually look out for when mirroring people? First thing we can look out for is what we call GHT, gestural hemispheric tendency. Essentially, when we think of positive emotions, we tend to look one way. And if we think of a negative emotion, we'll look the other way. It's just one thing that we can look out for. And when we present our positive ideas, we would then mirror them the same side as the other person. It's just as simple as that, guys. Really, simple things like this. GHT is really easy to note down. The SPY compass, we actually an easy way to note this down. And these are, so just before we move on to mirrors, guys, I'll quickly explain what a mirror actually is. A mirror is literally just imitation of another human being, and mirroring these it just flies under the radar. And these are some things you can quite easily mirror. At the bottom of the Scan Hughes compass, we have these little signs, so you can circle these throughout. They're talking locus of control is essentially, is the world happening to that person, or is the person happening to the world? So is the world in control of them, which is what we call external locus of control, or are they in control of the world, internal? And you can find this out just by asking them questions and talking to them. If you ever ask someone, how do you get a cold? And they start saying, oh, well, I didn't look after myself. I should have done this. I've not been eating right lately. They're taking responsibility. So that tells me they're an internal locus of control. However, if they responded, you know, just germs everywhere, cold weather lately, you know, it just wasn't my fault. That's an external, because the world's happening to them. Pronouns preference. So these are good to mirror. My natural pronoun preference is self pronouns. So I'll like to use words like I, you, me, things like that. These are what we call self pronouns. If someone uses self pronouns, naturally you want to use those as well. If you're using team pronouns, however, if you like using words like we, us, together, them, I like to look at these as sales wanky terms, essentially. So whenever I hear people who have these as their pronouns, I'll make an effort to change my pronouns to match theirs. And I'll use we, us, together, families, communities, things of that nature. And then the final pronouns, which is a very small proportion of what we call others. These don't sound very natural in conversation. It takes up about 10-15% of the population, but it will sound stuff like Greg went to, that person went to the shop. Almost sounds robotic when you speak to these people. And then finally, we've got the sensory preference. So if your dog could talk to you, he would talk to you in smells of the world. We're not dogs, obviously, but people will describe their surroundings, situation, people, objects, using sensory pronouns, either visual, audio, kinesthetic. Visual pronouns, looking, seeing things. Audio, sensory preferences, listening, I can hear this, speaking to people. And then kinesthetic, this can be a little bit of a tricky one. This technically means the sense of motion. So you'd be able to feel things despite not being able to see or hear what is happening. This usually falls into one of two ways of describing situations, using as feelings or something as doing. So for example, I sense, I can imagine, my gut is telling me. These are the kind of kinesthetic preferences. And then just keep an eye out for adjectives. You know, positive adjectives for me would be like awesome, amazing. Negative ones would be BS, bullshit, annoying. If you start hearing these in other people's languages, when you're presenting negative and positive ideas, you just want to kind of throw in some of their preferred adjectives. And just again, examples where we use sales, networking. I use this all the time. Performances is another place that I use this for as well. I make a point now to spend the first 2 to 3 minutes baselining a group of people before performing anything at events, as this actually gets me even more business, because it's like I'm having a genuine conversation before I'm pulling my cards out or doing magic. I get to learn about other people, which means they get to learn about me as well, which helps them remember me and my business, which is really cool. So quick exercise, there's essentially a way of doing this. There's a safe way of practicing this during your sales, consultations, phone calls. You can do this for friends and family. Essentially, I give you, when you come onto the SBPN, there's a compass. You'd be circling this. So I've just focused on the bottom half of the compass here. So this would be IE, locus of control, internal, external, pronoun, self, team, other, preference, preferences for, wow, I've completed sensory preferences, completely forgot the word there. Visual, audio, kinesthetic, handiness, right, left, and then the arrows are for your GHT. Don't worry about the top part of the compass. And when you learn this, you can actually put these on your little post-it notes, which is what I do in performances for cold readings, believe it or not, just to kind of keep track. And the center bit you can use to learn, to keep an eye out for rhythm, speed, volume, pitch, visual body language. We've just gone through all the visual body language today.
you can put that in the center and just see when that changes and makes notes. So what started happening when I started doing this, I had way more fun in my conversations just by learning body language reading, guys, and learning some of these to mirror these kind of things. It makes all of your interactions way more interesting. Mirrors soon became my best friend. I utilize these in all my conversations. It's one of the main reasons people think I'm smarter than I actually am. And by having the Scan Hughes compass as a printed document, I've actually got this set up on my iPad with my iPen, so I can just create new ones of these whenever I meet people, put their name in, got the scan code at the top right corner, start circling all their social needs. Bottom part is all the mirroring terms, and it just makes communicating with people a lot easier. And when we combine this technique with what we've covered in the visual channel today when reading emotional behavior, you can also mirror their visual stuff as well. And over time, you won't even need the compass or post-it notes, as it's easy enough to remember and visualize this inside your own mind. Eventually, for myself, I actually see these compasses above people's head when I'm really tuning in. So again, usually I would go through any questions people would have right now. As we have no humans on the webinar, we're just going to quickly close up with that final offer again. Said this is just a small piece of the puzzle, guys, for the Sherlock Bond persuasive negotiation system. If you allow me to ask you this, what if we went further down the rabbit hole? What if I showed you a few more things about this system? I've already told you before, SBPN, if you're struggling with rejection, you're lacking in confidence in your conversation frameworks, you've got lots of broken connections, you're connecting with the wrong people, this is something that might be able to help you guys out. And what happens if you keep doing this the wrong way? You're going to end up wasting your time, energy, money, speaking to the wrong people, guys. You're going to miss out on those opportunities because you're not going to be asking the right questions or connecting with people to see the damn opportunities. And like I said, worst thing about this is you're not going to be presenting the best version of yourself, which is a disservice to you. It's a disservice to other people. Don't need to go through all this. I've told you, we all know this can help you guys. Who's the offer for? If you want to make more genuine connections, you want to stop meeting those psychopaths, villains, narcissists, keep the wrong people away from you, and you want to become a business owner or a professional who's considered a boss or an undercover spy, and you're tired of being overlooked by decision makers who go with less than average people in your industry, this is going to help you become unforgettable and stupidly persuasive in your conversation frameworks. I promise you. As I said, who's the offer not for? If you're looking for a quick win, don't sign up. I don't want your money. I want to work with real people to help them better their lives and better other people's lives. If you're looking for a quick win, it's not going to be for you. I've already told you guys, manipulative and bad people with bad intentions do not come on this course, because I will expose you. I will take your money. I will then find out you're a bad person. You'll find out in the agreement, if I find out you're a bad person, I don't have to refund you and I can kick you off all my courses. Save your damn money. Don't come on the course. I don't want you. It's nothing personal. Well, it is kind of personal, but bad people with bad intentions don't come onto the course. And if you're looking for the impossible dream, the lie detector, a 100% closing sales script that doesn't exist, isn't for you guys. It doesn't exist, okay? We're going into something a little bit more cooler than that. So if you want to be learning to build trust quickly with people, building communities with, help me build a community of ethical spies, learn more about yourself and other people, make more connections, essentially help others move forward and solve their problems within your conversations, and essentially learn some techniques that are going to make all of your interactions super fun and unforgettable way of connecting with people. This is going to be the system for you. We've already gone through this. You get access to the online school. We do regular one-to-one Zoom sessions with myself. We do a monthly group Zoom session with all the other undercover spies. You're going to get a copy of my book, and anyone who comes onto the top God tier level, you're going to get access. You're going to get copies of the Sherlock Bond persuasive negotiation personality card decoders. Super cool stuff. So 2 options for joining. These are the prices as of today. So if you'd like to become a level 1 SBPN spy today, get access to modules. They're supposed to say 1 to 3 there at the minute. Get access to modules 1 to 3. You get a monthly 60 to 90 minute group session with myself and all the other spies. You get weekly 60 to 60-minute coaching sessions with myself. Get a copy of the book Real Life Stories of Narcissist Psychopaths and Gadgets to Defeat the Villains. That is what we like to call the Baby Spy course, which is going for £654 today. The Big Boss Spy course, you get access to all the modules, 1 to 6 of the mix. We haven't built the final 3 yet. You're going to be helping us build those with the live sessions. Also get the monthly group sessions with myself and the other SBPN spies. We've got an hour coaching session with myself, copy of the book. You're going to get your own personality decoding spies. And when I finally figure out the logistics of the new Sherlock Bond Network Spy Assault course, that's going to be happening in Sheffield, you're going to get a ticket for that completely free, which is optional. That package there is $997 for the Big Boss Spy program. Anyone who's interested, do feel free to go check out the website. It's magicspeaker.gurucan.com/SBPN. Just some of the people who've joined on this. This is Mikey, my first ever spy, 001, if you will. Mikey's come milestones since joining. He's been on SBPN for 3 months now, and he has been killing it in the workplace. Jody came on to us for some anti-narcissist and, anti-negative manipulation training. And we did some amazing stuff together. We did the Doxano manipulation blueprint. We went through the whole, the scripts the villains put you through when they come to manipulate and other things of that nature, to make sure she's aware and it doesn't happen again. And then we also did a confidence booster for Jody as well. Chris has done some training with us. Chris is a fellow hypnotist. We did mainly tonality training because there's different tonalities in negotiation, which is really useful for suggestion work in hypnosis. And some of the baselining work he's been using, he's slowly moving on to the realms of mind reading. So lots of different applications for this stuff, guys. And the guarantee that we offer you guys, we promise you'll be making more of the right connections and you'll become master of social engineering, persuasion and negotiation by the end of your spy training. And if you're not, I'm going to work with you personally until you are. Like, if you hand over your hard-earned money to me and you decide to invest in this program and trust me with this program, I will keep you on as long as possible to get you where you need to be in terms of negotiation, networking, confidence. Whatever your key goals are, we're going to help you with. So as we said, top secret. Since you guys have made it this far today, I think it's only fair I offer you guys a little bit of discount as well. So the courses are available on magicspeaker.gurucan.com/SBPN. And there's a special coupon code out there at the minute, which is first 10S, all capital letters. And this stands for the first 10 spies. We've got 1 spy on the course at the minute. There's 9 more with this offer. If you decide to jump on any of those courses today, you get another 10% off of 654 and 997, depending if you want to be a baby spy or a big boss spy. So guys, I want to thank you all for sticking around with us today. I know it's been a bit of a long session, gotten through lots of things, gone through the rules and laws of reading body language, gone through a lot of the visual channel today. And we've also touched on mirrors and things of that nature. So I hope you guys had as much fun learning this and watching this video today as I did putting together the presentation. I hope you all have an amazing day, an amazing weekend. Thank you for being here. Sherlock Bond out. Peace.